What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. I feel like I'm going to get so much hate for this video, but I wanted to make it anyways because I see it. I'm actually cool with this, and I would like to see this fight. Now, that being said, obviously, I made a video over the weekend saying how welterweight is the most exciting division in the UFC, bar none, by far, right now, and that's because there's so many incredible matchups. And I know maybe the welterweight fighters might be annoyed that Islam is coming in and sort of taking over their division like this. But to me, I think it makes it brilliant because now you have a million fresh matchups for Islam, which is very exciting. We got to see that Islam's power and dominance and skills translates up to this greater weight class. And because now we have all these fresh matchups for Islam, we have fresh matchups within the welterweight division, all these different ways that we can match up the existing fighters that are in there. Leon Edwards versus Masvidal, that's another one that just seems to have appeared and could be a great one for Leon out of that loss. But anyways, we're going to go through everything in terms of the welterweight division, how different opponents stack up, and ultimately focus on what does Islam want and what would be great for his legacy going forward. And ultimately, that's why I think Kamaru Usman makes a ton of sense. That's why he wants him. I don't think it's totally equivalent to John Jones versus Stipe, which a lot of people are drawing parallels to. Look, Usman's not 40. He's 38. Yeah, he is up there, but he's 38, and he's done tremendous things in the sports. And whatever you want to say about the level of competition that he'll face from all these other opponents, nobody has the legacy and the name value that Kamaru Usman has. So when people look back at Islam's incredible run, they're going to see he beat Charles Oliveira, former champion, amazing champion. He beat Dustin Poirier, an interim champion. You know, he did beat Arman Tsarukyan already. So by the way, that's in the books. He beat Alexander Volkanovski, pound for pound #1 guy, while he was pound for pound #1 twice. Kamaru Usman, who has been atop those rankings as well. So that's part of what I believe Islam is trying to build and establish. And I understand that. Versus what happens if he goes up and fights Michael Morales? Yeah, in the moment, it's like, oh my God, that guy's a killer. But imagine this. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying this is what will happen, but imagine if Michael Morales comes up, very dangerous opponent, Islam beats him. He's thinking about the legacy in the future. When people look back, and maybe this isn't how the sport should work, okay? I'll admit that could be, maybe I'm building this whole argument off of something that shouldn't be a part of the sport, but when people look back, if Michael Morales never reaches the mountaintop, they're just like, oh, yeah, he beat some random guy. I don't know whatever happened to him. He never became champ, but nobody's going to be like, man, he looked like a crazy man. They're going to look at the resumes and be like, oh my God, he beat this champion, this champion, this champion. That's how I believe he's looking at it. And from that perspective, I get it. Also, this would be a very competitive fight. Even Ariel Helwani admitted that as much as he hates Ali and he hates his whole stable of fighters, he doesn't want them to have anything good, right? He even admitted that, hey, but this might actually be a very tough matchup. So it's a good fight for Islam, and it'll be a fun fight because I think Kamaru's wrestling will somewhat neutralize Islam, so they may have a striking battle. So we'll see some cool stuff. But anyways, let's get into the mix. I'm going to go through all of my points, starting at point number 1, and this has to do with the legacy bit, the pound for pound. Now, I did this in AI. I'm not sure if this is accurate, but I think it's right. I think this is correct. Kamaru Usman was ranked #1 pound for pound for 3 years during that time when John Jones was inactive, and they moved Kamaru Usman to the top, and it seemed like nobody could beat him in the welterweight division. That's huge. This guy is a legend of the sport, and people are forgetting all of a sudden that he's a legend just because he's had a couple losses. By the way, he's off of a great win. We're going to talk about that as well as something else to bolster this, but this guy is a legend. Okay. He's in that same rarefied air as, people might not like this, but I think he's in the mix with guys like GSP and whatnot because of the reign and the dominance that he showed for such a long time on the way up, beating Tyron Woodley and beating all these guys that were thought to be invincible. And he was that dark horse coming up, kind of like Hamzat Chimaev now, before he reached the mountaintop. People were like, who is this Kamaru Usman guy? He's the boogeyman of the division. He reached the mountaintop and he stayed there for a long time, had some crazy brawls with Colby Covington twice, with Jorge Masvidal twice. I mean, he did some real damage in the welterweight division. So anyways, to have this on Islam's resume, I think is very, very big, and nobody else stacks up like that. So now let's look at the welterweight divisions. And by the way, Kamaru Usman obviously is a former champ. Since Islam wants that ability to build to his resume in that way, the only other former champs in this top 13 list are saying I had to include Colby out here, even though he's really fallen off lately. But Colby was an interim champ, okay? But he's beat. Oh no, sorry, Islam hasn't fought Colby, and Colby's not getting a title shot. Obviously, I just put it on there. But the only guys that have touched, okay, and Jack Della, right? Obviously, I didn't highlight that because he just had a shot and he's not coming back any soon. But so of the available options, we've got Belal, which could be back in the mix if he beats Ian Garry. We've got Usman and we've got Edwards and we got Colby. Okay, none of these other guys. Michael Morales, as amazing as a fight that would be, has never touched gold. Shavkat never touched gold, although I'd love to see Shavkat versus Islam. And even Ian Machado Garry never touched gold. Now, we're going to talk about what might happen with some of these fights and who other potential people would be for a great matchup for Islam, even from just a fun perspective. Forget about legacy and all that. But anyways, we're going to get to that in a second. So as I mentioned, he's got the accolades. He is a former champ. And I think that should be weighed in to some extent in terms of making this matchup. I know Ariel made the allegations kind of that, and I'm going to play the video clip in a bit, that, hey, if this does happen, it's only because Ali is orchestrating things and they have some backroom deal. Look, regardless of Ali's relationship with the UFC and these two fighters, I don't think there's a backroom deal in the sense that like Ali's manipulating things. I think that if Islam wants the fight, which he does, he's going to pursue whatever fight is going to make sense for his career and his legacy. He's not going to do something at the behest of Ali. I just don't believe that to be the case. Now, will Ali help facilitate this? Certainly. Right? Both fighters are understable. They have a good relationship. So he'll help along those lines. And if it makes sense for the UFC, it will happen. But it's not like, I almost felt like Ariel was trying to paint this as Ali being puppet master and trying to put his two fighters against each other to maximize his pay. I don't think it works like that. Maybe I'm naive, but that's my 2 cents. Okay. So now let's focus on this last win. Let's talk about Kamaru's record. People are just writing off the Buckley win. He was ranked, I believe Buckley was ranked number 7 when Kamaru Usman fought him. And but not only was he 7, he was on the tear. People were looking at him as a big boogeyman. Maybe he was even higher. No, actually, let me back that up. I think it was either Usman was 5 and Buckley was 7 or vice versa. It was one of the two. But anyways, Buckley was up there and Buckley was hot off of a win against Colby. It was a big deal to get that win. And people are writing it off now, but like most people were picking Buckley to win in that fight. You want to talk about the 1 and 3 as well. Think about what Kamaru did, okay? He fought Leon and he lost his belt. Then he got an immediate rematch. Now, you could say, hey, the favor was already done with the immediate rematch and he shouldn't get a title shot this quick. But what about the other fight that he lost? Dude, the loss to Hamzat Chimaev should be viewed in the opposite way that it's being viewed. It's not really a loss. To me, that was a win. He took it on 10 days' notice and he moved up a weight class. He did the UFC a huge solid. And, okay, he gave Hamzat Chimaev, who we now see what he did to Dricus du Plessis at middleweight, okay? He annihilated Dricus du Plessis beyond any form of redemption whatsoever. That fight we'll never see a rematch of that. It was too one-sided. Look at what Usman did. Short notice, 3 rounds, and he won arguably the 3rd round. You know, Hamzat dominated in round 1, but he does that to everybody. And he's coming up from welterweight. He should get so much more credit for taking that fight and that performance. But instead, people put that as a mark against him, that he's 1 and 3. And so he should be, off the radar. Think about that. He could have won. I mean, he was in the running for potentially having a decent performance and doing okay there. And I think that's a big, big deal. Yes, he lost to Leon Edwards twice, former champ, while he was on top, and it is what it is, right? But then he comes back, has an amazing performance, in my opinion, against Hamzat Chimaev, and then gets the win over Buckley. I don't see it as being that big of a stretch. And there's another reason that I'm going to go to in point 4 that I think will also set up Usman potentially for this fight as a reasonable option. Now, let's compare and contrast that Buckley win to what these guys have done. Now, granted, Michael Morales beat number 2. Okay, that's a big deal. Sean Brady. It is a big deal. Like I said, though, I think for the pound for pound and the fact that he's a former champ, I think from Islam's perspective, that makes more sense. And like, don't sleep on Usman. Everybody's acting like he's over the hill. Why? He beat Buckley. He looked great. Everybody counted him out. He's clearly still got it. So to me, it's going to be probably more competitive, honestly, than I think Islam will wreck Michael Morales, as amazing as Morales is, just because of the ground advantage. I do. I think the same thing will happen with Prates. Even though it'd be a fun fight, I'd be down for it. Carlos Prates just beat number 4 guy, Leon Edwards, former champion. Okay, so yes, it's a great win, but I don't see Usman being that out of the mix compared to Carlos Prates, just based on that last one. And on top of that, Carlos Prates lost to Ian Garry. Now, the best argument I would say for anybody to get the next shot would be Ian Garry. And I probably, all things being equal, if Ian goes out there and beats Belal, who's now ranked as of today #2, I would probably, just from a pure equity fairness standpoint, meritocracy standpoint, I'd want Ian to have that shot. So I agree there. I'm not saying that Kamaru Usman is more deserving of Ian Garry. And I'm not even saying that it would be more interesting to have Usman go up instead of Michael Morales. I mean, like, I'm curious to see that fight, but I'm just saying I understand, like, you can make a good case for Kamaru Usman. I would like to see it, and I do think it's cool just because I think it's what Islam wants, and I know why he wants it, and I think it makes sense. I'd like to see the dominance and the beautiful legacy that Islam is trying to get. I want to see it get established. I think I'm just a big fan, and I want to see him win, and I want to see him achieve what he wants to achieve. So, anyways, like I said, I think this makes sense to look at his last win, to see what he's done historically, and say, yeah, this could be great. But the one caveat to that is, if Ian does get that victory over Belal, I'd love to see Ian get in there as well. It'd be a great super fight. We'd have a reboot of Ireland versus Dagestan. So there's a lot of intriguing things. But fine, if they don't give it to Ian, I want to see Buckley. Okay, not Buckley. I want to see Kamaru Usman. Now, what's the other thing that's on his side, in my opinion? I think the timing could work. Think about it. Morales just had a fight. Now, he took no damage, so he probably fought to get back in there, but you never know. Obviously, Prates fought probably very little damage as well. He could get right back in the mix. I don't know how this fight's going to go with Ian Garry and Belal, right? So if Ian is the only other one that really would make sense, what if he comes out of I do think Ian's going to win, but what if he comes out bruised and battered? What if they have a 3-round battle? What if Belal wins, right? I actually wouldn't mind seeing Belal versus Islam. I think that would be interesting too, since they've trained together. And Belal said he does want that fight, but what if these guys need rest and recovery time? Because Islam does not. At least that's what he said. He said he feels great. He dominated JDM. So maybe it would make sense to line this up for February or something like that. A quick turnaround for Islam. Kamaru obviously has been resting. He's ready to go at any moment. So you could set this up, slot this in if these other guys need recovery time. And then maybe we could have him fight one of these other up-and-comers right down the line. So, like, we don't miss a beat. You see that? I think that could be another reason that would support Kamaru getting this next title shot. I like it. I know MMA Joey and a bunch of other folks are going to be outraged at me for suggesting that this is whatsoever reasonable, but I think for the aforementioned reasons, it could work. Now, let's hear Ariel's thoughts on this potential matchup. They're not too favorable, but I'm going to color in why I think he is feeling this particular way after we hear this clip, because I do think there's other things going on behind the scenes that make Ariel have this very, very visceral reaction. Check this out.
It would be an absolute travesty, in my opinion, if Kamaru Usman gets this next title shot. I mean, I'm sorry. You have one win over Joaquin Buckley. I mean, I'm sorry. These guys are out there killing it. Sean Brady, my heart breaks for Sean Brady. Sean Brady should have been fighting for the belt.
That's
next.
rough.
Sean Brady should have fought for the belt tonight, or he should have gotten his next fight should have been for the belt. And this guy has to fight Michael Morales in like a total lose-lose fight, because Morales is not a household name, but you see Brady next to him, and it looks like a 205er against a 155er. And you saw what happened. Like, Brady is tough as hell. Look how good he looked. Who'd have thought back in March, when he's completely mauling Leon, 8 months later, they're both on the losing end of, insane knockouts against these guys. Like, it's cruel. It's cruel what happened to him, but he took the fight, and no one put a gun to his head, but I don't think he had many choices. If they go with Kamaru Usman, who has zero momentum whatsoever, who has one win against Joaquin Buckley, when all these guys are doing this stuff, give me Prates, give me Morales, give me Ian coming off a decision win over Belal, and give me Shavkat, who hasn't fought in a year over that Usman fight. I'm sorry, that would be disgusting if Kamaru Usman somehow gets a title shot next. And the only reason it would happen, in my opinion, is because they're both managed by the same guy, and there's some sort of agreement made there, because I can't think of any other reason other than he was once a champion many moons ago. Like, come on, what do we
throwing those straight, Ali's catches straight. Look, I think, again, I mean, obviously, as you can tell, what Ariel's coming at this from the very from that perspective, because he hates Ali. He hates him with a passion. Ali doesn't allow any of his fighters to be interviewed by Ariel, with the exception of Kayla Harrison, because she just disregards the mandate. But Ariel hates Ali, so this involves one of Ali's fighters that won't come on the show, two of Ali's fighters that won't come on the show. So it's going to be colored that way, and he's going to have that negative reaction as a result. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. When he says it would be a travesty, I think he's vastly exaggerating. He says zero momentum. That's not zero momentum. He came off a win off of Buckley. And again, you got to give him way more credit, in my opinion, for that Hamzat fight. Last thing I'll say is when he talks about the backroom deal or something like that, again, I feel like the insinuation is being made that Ali is back there orchestrating things. I don't think that's how it works at all. I don't think Khabib and Islam would allow that. They want this fight. And yes, Ali might be able to make it happen because he has both fighters under his roster, and he will do that. But it's probably being driven by Kamaru, and I guarantee you it's being driven by Kamaru and Islam, right? So and one other thing I want to point out is kind of funny. Ariel feels so bad for Sean Brady. His heart breaks for him, and he says, man, that fight against Morales was lose-lose. Why does he say that? Because Morales is still up and coming. He doesn't have a big name yet, and he's a super dangerous opponent. Well, what about, and then you want Islam to fight Morales? Isn't that even more lose-lose for Islam with the belt? Like, why do you want him to fight Morales? And then he throws out Prates above Usman. I don't know if I agree with that. Okay. Yes, Prates is in the mix and he had a great victory, but again, Prates lost to Ian Garry. How would you elevate Prates over Usman? That doesn't make sense to me. And so that, again, you have to bear in mind this perspective that I think Ariel's perspective is being jaded by his hatred, his absolute hatred for Ali and all those fighters that just won't come on a show. Now, we have another going off on the side here, a little tangent, but Ariel digs at Ali and this whole Usman versus Islam fight again. In yesterday's show, I want to play that clip as well.
One issue that I sometimes have with managers is that I feel like some managers, care more about their relationship with the UFC than their relationship with the fighters. So ultimately, as long as they're in good standing with the UFC, they're happy about that, and they'll do whatever to keep that relationship strong. And, if there's a few casualties along the way with the fighters, so be it. They're a dime a dozen. I feel like that's the sentiment. Mm-hmm. Do you understand what I'm talking about? You're shaking your head. So how do you, because ultimately I was talking to one fighter who told me, like, I don't want my manager to be best friends with the UFC. I want the UFC to respect them, but it's good sometimes when there's some friction, because that means he's fighting on my behalf.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you balance the two?
Well, I think you always have to put your fighter first, because,
Okay, that's the gist of it. I won't keep playing it. I just thought it was interesting that he went on that rant on Ali and why that would happen. And then here, very obviously doesn't bring him up by name, but you know who he's referring to when he says that, being best friends with the UFC and saying that, hey, basically he's sacrificing his fighters, like saying they're a dime a dozen just to be in the good graces with the UFC, which I don't think is fair. Look, I've never been managed by Ali. I don't know him personally, but I just find that hard to believe that so many people want to work with him if that truly is how he treats them. I just don't buy it, but just want to throw that out there. I think it's interesting. Now, this is a bit of an aside from the main topic of this video, but I was waiting for Ali to respond because Ariel's been throwing some jabs at him lately. He did kind of respond a little bit on the Believe You Me podcast. If anything, though, it was almost more of a support and a defense of Ariel's wife, I guess, who Dylan Dennis has gone after, apparently. I don't even know this. I don't remember this. But anyways, we're going to play this little clip where finally Ali, to some extent, acknowledges Ariel, but again, not by name. Check this out.
And anybody, and I know that I am nobody to control the media. Anybody who give him the platform to really talk about it nonsense.
He's talking about Dylan Dennis, by the way. So he's saying anybody gives Dylan Dennis the platform to talk, he kind of blames them. So hear what he has to say here.
Talk about people's wives and this, like I think it's crazy. And the only guy now, he talk about his wife too. This big nose guy, he talk about his wife, he talk about this, how you gonna get this guy on your platform? I don't like this guy, the big nose guy, but how are you going to talk about your wife and interviewing him? I don't understand anything, I was upset when you talk about his wife, and I don't like him, but in a way, it's part of it's our fault, If anybody ignored this guy, nobody talked with him, he would die, but he went there. Let me tell you what he went there. He went there for attention. Because he know if he's not going to go there, he's an irrelevant piece of shit.
Okay, well, anyways, he's really more talking about Dylan Dennis, but he kind of brings up Ariel a little bit. You notice Bisping doesn't say a word. He kind of is like, all right, I don't want to open that can of worms again and go back and forth with Ariel. So they don't say much. He brings him up slightly. Anyways, that's just more of a fun aside. I was waiting because I felt like Ariel's been throwing a lot of jabs at Ali lately. Finally, Ali brings him up at least slightly. But there's a whole thing from start to finish. I think that beef gives you a little bit more context as to why Ariel's so against Kamaru Usman getting a title shot, but I'm okay with it. Okay. Would I slightly rather see Ian Garry get in there just because Ian Garry, I think, is exciting. We have the reboot of the Ireland versus Dagestan beef. Like, yeah, actually, I would lean towards that fight if I had to choose between the two, but I'm okay with Kamaru Usman. And again, I think it does great things for Islam's legacy. I think it will be an amazing fight. I think people are just automatically assuming it won't be a good fight. I think it'll be an amazing fight. I'd be very curious to see how Kamaru Usman's wrestling and wrestling defense nullifies Islam's ability to take him down. I mean, it's a fascinating fight. So that's my 2 cents. I'm down for it, but I'm down for whatever in the welterweight division. Welterweight division is the best division on the planet. Amazing. So let's go. We all win. Thank you guys so much for joining. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you triggered? Are you mad that I even brought this up and supported it whatsoever? Or do you agree with me? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for joining, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.